Welcome to this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break, Throwback Thursday, powered by JM&E. I am KG Kris Gardner of the Houston Roundball Review, and joining me is KP Miss Kennetra Pulliams. How are you doing, ma'am?
I'm doing well, Kris. Thanks.
Thank you for joining me as always. We're going to have not a fast break show like last week. It's going to be hopefully close to the full 55/60 minutes. A lot to discuss, though. First things first, y'all know if you're a regular viewer of this show, you can watch the show via the BS3 app on Roku. Download the app, download BS3 so you can watch the Houston Roundball Review show, shows live, shows on demand. Download the app. If not, you can go to bs3network.com or bs3tvlive.com. Okay, big news, big weekend ahead. Men's and women's college hoops first. First up, because my alma mater is in it, I'm going to go with them first. The men's Final Four. Duke from the ACC, Houston from the Big 12, two from the SEC, Auburn and Florida. Semifinals on Saturday. First up, they're all one seeds. First up, Florida versus Auburn at 5:09 on CBS Central Time. Gotta get that out there. Followed by Duke and Houston, 7:49 Central Time on CBS. Your thoughts on those matchups? Not necessarily your prediction just yet, but your thoughts on the matchups.
I mean, it's kind of what, chalk, as they say, when you get all four number ones, getting through. A lot of people, when Selection Sunday happened, thought that maybe Michigan State, had a favorable path to get to San Antonio, but that didn't happen. So it's, we talked kind of last week about the role that NIL plays, and so you really don't really have the Cinderellas. You don't have a double-digit seed getting through. It's all blue bloods. It's all number one seeds. It's all Power 5 conferences, getting through, and so.
Yeah, and it's the first time since 2008 for all 4 1 seeds to make it, and last 2008 was in San Antonio. So history repeating itself.
And like in San Antonio on the same dates.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if past this prologue, a Big 12 team won the national championship. So that would bode well for your alma mater.
Indeed. Thank you for bringing that up, because, I didn't want to say that just yet, but thank you very much. And for those who don't know, who was that?
That was Kansas.
Yes, Kansas. And let me say this, because some folks don't know, and we haven't really talked about it. I just, I've known you for a while now. You have insight to KU athletics because you worked on the pre and post game shows for KU ESPN Plus, which used to be Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. So when you hear KP go into really specific insight about KU, it's because she knows. Okay, she has great information in context with KU athletics. So it's not like I just pulled her out. Where you meet her from? Kind of. There's a method to my madness, folks. So just part of the Houston Roundball Review Media Group. Been around a long time and met her at Big 12, and she knows her stuff. And I think she has proven that she knows her stuff, and that's why I enjoy having her insight on the show. Next, we'll get to the predictions momentarily, but I'm going to go to the women. Mm-hmm. Kind of, not quite all 4 1 seeds, but chalk for the most part. I mean, a lot of people thought UConn would beat USC, even with Juju being healthy. I was one of those, but UConn from the Big East, UCLA, Big 10, still seems strange seeing that. But and South Carolina and Texas from the SEC. First game, Texas, South Carolina, ESPN, 6 o'clock, roughly, 6:09, 6:15, whatever. Followed by UConn, UCLA on ESPN. Thoughts on those two matchups?
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like the men's side. You have, 2 conference rivals, playing each other in the semifinals. And so this will be the 4th time that South Carolina and Texas have played each other. Gamecocks have won 2 of those, including the most recent one in the SEC championship game. But it's kind of to me, the women's tournament kind of not is more predictable, but there are less surprises. Cinderella. You really don't have those mid-major schools, You don't have a Florida Atlantic or a George Mason, coming through and making, the Final Four or even, the Elite Eight in that regard. So,
yeah, upsets in the first round are beginning to happen more on the women's side, but it's nowhere near the upsets, outside of this year men's side, was pretty much chalk throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad you said that, because sometimes, and I point that out, some people accuse me of being a chauvinist. And I'm like, no, I watch women's basketball. And I'm just saying, right now, the cream is still the cream of the crop. It's still up top. And every so often you get an outlier upset first or second round. But when it gets to the Elite Eight, Final Four, it's usually the same people established programs.
Yeah, this year, you got Kansas State getting through, and knocking off Kentucky, so like
TCU as well.
Exactly. Right. So that's but TCU, regular season champ, tournament champ.
Mm-hmm.
So like it wasn't like, where did they come from?
Right.
Now the turnaround from what the Horned Frogs did last season to this season is remarkable.
Indeed.
So props to that. But it wasn't like they were some sleeper.
And that quick turnaround by Coach Campbell staff gives me, as a UH alum, hope for new head coach Matthew Mitchell. I'm going to put a pin in our thoughts on the Final Four just for a moment, because Houston made it official and had the press conference April 1st announcing Matthew Mitchell as a head coach. It was, word got out, I think last Thursday after we did the show, Thursday or Friday. Mm-hmm. That's when it was official. I heard about it before it was made official. Appreciate the heads up from the administration for letting me know that. And I met Coach Mitchell, and it's a small world. And I didn't think about this because I spent so much. It's an excuse, really. It's my fault. I didn't think about this, but Coach Mitchell knows Van Chancellor, and known him from Mississippi for eons. I've known Coach Chancellor. I have Coach Chancellor's number. I saw Coach Chancellor at the press conference. Ironically, he was pulling up behind me in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Him and his wife. So when they parked, I got out. Coach saw me. Kris, how you doing? Good to see you. Here for the press conference. Where's it at? And he thought it was in the alumni building. I said, no, Coach, it's going to be at Fertitta Center. Okay, well, I've been there, Kris. We're following you. So walked them to where we were going. And I joked with some of the people there. Look who I brought with me. So, and then when I saw Coach Mitchell talk to Coach Chancellor, I was like, oh, yeah, they have a connection. Eddie Nunez, the AD at Houston, has a connection with Coach Chancellor from LSU. So I'm like, I should have known. Let's put this together much, much sooner. But long story short, I met Coach Mitchell. He is willing to be a guest on podcast interviews on either the Takeover or the Houston Roundball review going forward. So once he has time, we're going to make that happen. So very appreciative of that. Now, press conference is a press conference. You say all the right things, win the press conference. He won the press conference. So put a pin in that. Back to the Final Fours.
Okay.
As you stated minutes ago, this will be the fourth matchup between Texas and South Carolina. Mm-hmm. I don't expect a high-scoring game. But do you have in your mind one or two keys for Carolina to win or for Texas to win, your alma mater? So what's going to be a key or two in that matchup?
I mean, if Texas plays defense the way they did against TCU, pressure defense, forcing, preventing the opponent from getting into a rhythm. TCU had more turnovers than made field goals.
That's amazing.
For the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if Texas can continue to do that and, get Madison Booker to her spots, along the baseline to get, mid-range Maddie,
mm-hmm.
To get her shots, that's what Texas needs to do well. South Carolina can't get into the habit, as they have shown throughout this tournament, of waiting to determine what is the pace going to be? How are they going to play? They can't play catch up. They have to be the aggressor from the beginning, because they've shown they really don't do well playing from behind. They really struggle just to kind of get into the rhythm. I think the X factor for South Carolina is Malaysia Fulton-Wiley.
Agreed.
She is that spark that can really get them going. I from what I've seen from South Carolina this year, they miss Carmela Cardozo.
And that's natural.
Yeah.
She was the fulcrum of the offense. She was a leader, hell of a talent, great option when everything was broke down. You could just throw it down to the big girl and she'd get a bucket.
Yeah. Chloe Kitts is more of a finesse player.
Yes. And Chloe Kitts, kudos to her. She started last year's team. This is more of her team this year, but she is not Camila Cardoso. Chloe still gets double doubles, and her performance in the tournament so far has kind of removed her from being unknown, even though she started on last year's title team. So after they won it last year, I was able to talk to her in the locker room. Pretty much no issues. I mean, no one really, flocked to her because it was everybody else. So I talked to her. I don't think it's going to be the case this year, Kennetra. I think, people have her performance, lack of teammates really stepping up and filling that role, of Camila Cardoso's absence. I think Chloe's going to be on the main stage, the main dais, talking with Dawn Staley. And so, I'll still, do my part when I'm in Tampa, talking to the teams. Prediction: Longhorns, Carolina. Who you got?
I mean, obviously, I want Texas to win, but I think Carolina's going to win.
Okay, and same reasoning. I was added to the Longhorns media list this year, and I've known Coach Schaefer for years, way back when he was on the A&M staff. I've known some of his assistant coaches as well. I know I make fun of the burnt orange people often, but I have so much respect for Coach Schaefer and known him for a long time, and the players I've known, for a while, and all those kind of things. I hope they win. I'm still going to pick South Carolina, though. But Coach Schaefer, in the year 2025, the year of our Lord, 2025, he has got the Longhorns to the Final Four, even though they rarely attempt three-pointers.
Right.
So in this day and age, you got some teams in college attempting 30, 35, 43. Tennessee, first year, and it worked to a point.
Till they play Texas.
Right. Texas may take what, 6?
Yeah.
Less than 10. I think that's safe. I think the average is less than 10. And yet they win with defense. They win with forcing turnovers, scoring in transition, and free throw attempts. And of course, Roy Harmon is from the Houston area. So that's another reason why I hope Texas wins, and look forward to talking to her.
The emotion on her face after they beat TCU of just her journey of kind of getting to the Final Four.
So,
and she has the option of coming back next year.
Right. And we could talk about that if we had more time. We could probably talk about 2 hours, because I have a lot of I had stuff pop in my head about Gino, his comments. Let's talk about that. Okay, well, and UConn, UCLA fans and UConn, I'm glad y'all are back in the Final Four, because when I interview some of the players or post a comment from Coach Gino, my views go up. So it's a beautiful thing. But Texas, Roy Harmon, the Longhorn staff, I got a tie connections with them. So we're spending more time on them. But let's talk about, show some attention to UCLA, UConn, keys in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Lauren Betts definitely for UCLA. I mean, UCLA, making the first ever trip to the Final Four. I'm sure Jackie Joyner Kersey's proud. But for Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, who's from Kansas City, so remember her in high school. Great. But right now, I mean, Gino has UConn rolling. It's just AZ Fudd and Paige Beckers and Strong. I mean, they're really playing well together right now. They're playing their best basketball right now.
So is that an indication of who you're picking to win that one?
I would say, I would, pulling for UCLA, but objectively thinking UConn's going to win.
Agreed. And even though Lauren Betts, 6'7", the more and more I watch UCLA play and watch her play, she brings the ball down on her shots to her shoulder level way too much. For being the tallest player on the court, her shot gets blocked too often from players 6'2", sometimes 6 feet. I mean, what Juju blocked her shot 4 or 5 times, because she doesn't keep it up high. Mm-hmm. So that's coaching. I mean, she's still All-America Player of the Year candidate, but just think what she could do once she learns to keep the ball up high above her head.
I don't disagree that it's coaching, but is it all coaching? Some of it is just innate, just their mechanics. I mean, you look on the men's side, Bryce Thompson from Oklahoma State, his shot, he has a very slow developing shot that he has to wind up to get off. And it's like, it's always been that way. So it's just like, how do you correct that? I mean, I guess you get a shot coach who can correct the mechanics, but if that's just who you are and that's how you always played, it's hard to undo something in a span of 4 years that you've been playing that way for 20 years.
It's fair point. I think when she gets to the pros and she's coming back for her last year to play with her sister next season. But when she does finally get to the pros, I think it's going to be an issue, and she's going to have to, be taught how to, break that habit, break it, because it is innate in her now, clearly. Mm-hmm. And I think, Sarah Strong, might be some other UConn players block her shot in their matchup on Friday, and that just shouldn't be the case. And mechanics, her body frame, body type, her body frame is probably doesn't help either, because if she was able to learn at a younger age, like just a jump hook kind of thing, or just keep it up high, oh my goodness, it'd be over. Just turn and just jump hook it up. Okay, Carolina, UConn, we say in the title game on Sunday, 2:00 ABC. Who's going to win it all?
UConn.
Okay, good. I'm glad to say that because I'll pick South Carolina, so we'll be different on that one. Okay. All right, back to the fellas. I'm kind of curious as your thoughts on the second matchup, but the first matchup, Florida, Auburn, keys in that matchup.
Clayton is a tremendous point guard. I just wonder about the health of Janai Broome.
Sure.
And that elbow, I mean, he came back and gave his Willis Reed impression and did that, but he still, and he's dealt with little nagging injuries all season. So I think that's going to be an issue. I think Florida's going to win that one.
I agree. Janai's injuries, he's had shoulder injuries. Now the elbow, he hyperextended his knee on the play Sunday as well. I think he's been battling some ankle issues also. But Walter Clayton, Denver Jones, I think it'd be a good matchup for him. It doesn't matter now. But Texas Tech. Oh my goodness, Texas Tech. Make your free throws, take better shots, use the shot clock more, all of those. So it's not Florida's fault that Texas Tech did none of those things we just talked about. They took advantage of it. But
He
man,
never apologized for a win.
amen. But Tech was right there for making it 2 Big 12 teams in the Final Four rather than just Houston. Okay, Houston, Duke. You already know who I'm picking. So, and I'm trying to be objective about it, but just your thoughts on the keys to the matchup.
I same thing. I want Houston to win. I think Duke's going to win.
Give me some info on why. I'm kind of curious.
Yes, the way Houston rebounds and Houston's defense is stellar. But I just think that just kind of what Cooper Flagg has learned, how you can see he has grown and evolved and matured, this season from where he was back in November to now, like who he is, just his versatility and his ability to be different things in Duke's offense. He shares the ball well, he rebounds, he scores it, he facilitates, plays defense. I think now if Houston can find a way to nullify him, then I think that serves Cougs well. And does Houston, number one, stay out of foul trouble?
That's one of the points of concern for me is how the refs will call the game. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. I haven't seen the roster of who's calling the semifinal game. But yeah, how do they call a game? And we'll see.
And I am picking the Cougs because it's a 1-game thing. I mentioned this. I was invited on local radio, Tuesday night. I thought to talk about the Cougs. Most of my time was talking about the Rockets, but at the end of it, asking about the Cougs and Duke. I'm being objective when I say this. If they were playing a series, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 7, I pick Duke.
Mm-hmm.
1 game, I'm putting more trust in Coach Kelvin Sampson to find a way to beat John Shire this one time on Saturday. No knock on John. John Shire has done a hell of a job.
You just
following a legend.
Sage experience.
Yes, but John Shire. It is hard to follow a legend. The immediate person.
Ask Cal Neptune.
Yes, and he is. And a key. One of my concerns is the Cougs' offense against Duke's defense. Duke's defense is much better than people want to realize because their offense is just phenomenal. I think so. I'm kind of curious to see how LJ Cryer, Milos Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, how they do against Duke's defense, and how Juwan Roberts does against Common Malich. Because I thought they're not going to double team.
Yeah.
And so can Juan win that matchup? But saying all that, I'm still trusting Kelvin Sampson. I'm trying to be objective, but I'm not. I'm being honest. I'm a Coug till I die. So Saturday, Cougs find a way to win and get to Monday against, we both agree, Florida.
Can they cut down the nets?
Get that close? Why not? So yeah. Yeah. And I will be there Monday. Cougs or not, I'll be there Monday. Making that drive, me and AD will be there Monday for sure. It's just amazing how things work. And for us, not in a good way. Andy will be there Friday, representing Lesser Age Cougs, Paul Samajema, all of us. AD had planned to be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Life intervened. So he'll only be able to be there Monday. So we'll just make it do what it do, and we'll be there when we get there. Back to Matthew Mitchell in his introductory press conference Tuesday. I teased it to you before we began the show, but here is part of Renew Couture, President Couture, comments during her minutes discussion about the hiring of Matthew Mitchell. Listen to this, Miss KP Kennetra Pulliams, on this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, powered by JM&E.
But here is the beauty of athletics. Immediately after we won the regional championship in Indianapolis, before I could even find my breath, I had text messages from so many university presidents congratulating me. So everybody's eyes are on Houston Cougars. This is how we build academic reputation, recognition by just bringing attention through athletics. And this time has been great for us. But it has always puzzled me, why shouldn't we have our women's basketball program exactly where our men's basketball program is? And I know the leader we are hiring today, Coach Mitchell, he is no stranger to being Coach of the Year or playing in the best of the best. Is coming from SEC background. He's no stranger to being in Sweet 16 or even an Elite 8. So now the challenge is going to be, which I'm going to present the challenge, and that is we got to get in Final Four for women's basketball. Absolutely. Because, Coach, I know you can do it. And the passion that is here, the grit, the determination, the support, and the fans, I think we are all here to help you with that.
Thoughts?
Wishful, hopeful, optimistic.
Yes, all of that. But you know what got me? She's always wondered why we don't have the same success in women's basketball and men's basketball. And I thought, I'm sitting in my seat, I almost yelled out. 11 years. You had that man in charge of the program 11 years, 0 trips to the tournament. Why don't you make a move sooner? 11. Right. If you always thought about why we don't.
But we have the support in place. Do you?
No.
What does support look like to her?
I mean, so I was like, what?
And I mean, no knock on Coach Mitchell, but the game he's returning to is not the game he left.
And he acknowledged that. I did ask him about that. His answer, I don't have that clip for us, but it's on the Houston Athletics. The whole press conference is on Houston Athletics YouTube channel. His answer to it, because I asked him about NIL, revenue sharing. His answer to that question was not great. He said, been out of the game for a while, and over the years, been studying how to best manage women's college basketball today. So he kind of, talked around it without getting into specifics of how he's going to adjust to NIL revenue sharing. Did
he say why he retired?
Yeah, I waited for that for our one-on-one discussion. So that I held back on that one. So once it was confirmed that he and I would talk, that's when I'll bring all that stuff up. But when I heard President Couture say that, she's always wondered why we don't have the same success. If a camera would have caught the look on my face, I would have been like, say what?
What game, what athletic department has she been watching?
And I'm not going to say she hasn't, but I could probably count on the 11 years when Coach Huey was in charge, probably just on my 10 fingers, my 8 fingers and my 2 thumbs, the number of times I've seen her at a game, women's game. Now, men's games, at least 3-4 times a year.
Listening between the lines, does she think that there's going to be an increase in, number 1, attendance, number 2, applications from students to the University of Houston because of who they hired as women's basketball coach?
I hope not.
I mean, because she tried to make that correlation between athletics and academics. I'm like, say what?
Right. Yeah. So that's why I wanted to play that part of her comments, because I was curious. Oh yeah, KP's got to hear this. But
But
Thank
again,
you.
like I said off air, the powers that be, if they wanted, to have this synergistic relationship between men's basketball, women's basketball, why not have the introductory press conference butt up to Coach Sampson and the men's Final Four, and have the local media coverage and the support that they desire. Make it convenient for the local media to knock out coverage of both. Hey, while I'm here, bam, 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 I could do these back to back instead of spacing them out in the day to where it's like, hey, there are other things happening that they have to cover. But, what do I know?
I love my alma mater, but when I say this, it's not a good thing. Coug's gonna Coug. So that's what it is. Coug's gonna Coug. And hopefully that changes. I hope, and I mean, Coach Mitchell is a winner. He won at Kentucky. We'll see if the years away will hurt the program, hinder the program, help the program. Maybe he's learned something through his time away. He said some good things. One thing he said, and I'll say it to you off the air because I don't want to get myself in trouble. But
did he give maybe just kind of an outline? Hey, here's my top three, my to-do list. First thing I'm going to do is.
First, he's got to put together a staff. So he said he's going to.
I mean, did he say, hey?
Right. He's going to recruit the Houston area hard. Ironically, he had one of his players at Kentucky, Chastity Patterson, is from here, from Houston, with the North Shore. She initially, ironically, went to Texas and then transferred from Texas to Kentucky. She was at the press conference and he mentioned her, acknowledged her. And I talked to her just off the record, chop it up with her afterwards to get her thoughts on Coach Mitchell. And she really was happy that he got the job and she believes that he'll do a good job here. And she's looking forward to working with him. She's into some player development herself now that she's retired from playing basketball. So they may, have an even better relationship, working relationship right there.
I was like,
with some of the talent.
Does that mean like staff position?
I mean, who knows? But she being a Houston product, she knows people.
Sure.
She knows coaches. So that's a connection. But he wants to reconnect. And this is one thing. How can I say this delicately? Coach Huey had kind of lost touch with the Houston high school coaches. So, and when he spent a lot of time with transfers and lately, the last couple of years in the portal, Coach Mitchell is going to try. I mean, he still has to deal with the portal. I mean, it's reality of basketball now.
Yeah. But
he wants to rebuild the relationship with the Houston area high school coaches. And I'm going to say this because he acknowledged her during his comments that he spoke with Chandy Jones, Houston legend, University of Houston legend, Bay City legend as well. And I reached out to her and she said that she and him had a great talk and they're going to reconnect later on in the week. And she's looking forward to working with him. Chandy is now a high school coach. So that's another positive thing. So that I think he's doing the right things. He's saying the right things. Now he's got to put them in motion.
I mean,
hopefully it's going to work.
Like you have to have a connection with the alumni. You have to have a connection with the local coaches, whether it's AAU or whether it's high school. You have to have a strong relationship there. And then you also have to be able to manage the portal. And in order to assemble a roster, you kind of have to have a mix. You have to have the patience for player development, but you also have to, you have to, especially being new to this area, understand, okay, what is the Big 12 landscape? Okay, who are the movers and shakers that he needs to know to make this thing happen? Because it's not this, he's not going to get 11 years to turn this thing around.
No.
So position himself to be successful sooner.
So, it'll be smart for him to put on staff folks who have connections to the Houston area, Texas, Big 12, all those things. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to working with him in a way I can work with him, media, unless they, by some miracle, say we want to hire you on staff, about that. But regarding, and that's past the bottom of the hour just for a little bit, but I heard from an administrator regarding NIL, the money they're setting aside for women's basketball is going to be comparable to, let me say, not the South Carolina, the top tier, but, top 20 and top 50, between top 21 to 50. That surprised me, pleasantly surprised me that they're willing to invest in the program like that. So that's good to hear. They got to do it. They have to get the right players that fit the culture and all those things, because, just tossing money around doesn't guarantee you success. But they seem to have a plan in place. Another administrator told me, we're back. So I'm like, okay, that's another positive. I mean, y'all been asleep for 11 years. So I don't know about back from what, because you haven't been to the tournament.
Back. What does back look like? You
haven't been to the tournament since 2011. And only a handful of folks were around way back then, covering the team, with the team, all those kind of things. And I'm one of them. That's why I know how long it's been. I left it alone, because I'm like, okay, you haven't been here long enough to make that statement. But anyway, okay. Bottom of the hour on this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, as you're watching us on YouTube and on Roku via the BS3 app. Here is time to play the spot, the promo for BS3, to give you an indication of what BS3 is all about. And KP and I will be back in 35 seconds. You are watching the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, powered by JM&E.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Welcome back to the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break, powered by JM&E, streaming on YouTube at the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, and also on Roku via the BS3 app. I am KG Kris Gardner, and with me is KP, Kennetra Pulliams. We were talking Houston Cougars, women's basketball, made our predictions on the men's and women's Final Four. So if you missed that, you can watch that afterwards. Now, we're going to talk about one of the teams participating in the men's Final Four. This I find interesting. The dark money behind Duke basketball. Courtesy of Andrew Beaton from the Wall Street Journal. If you're looking for the money behind the most iconic brand in men's college basketball, the favorite to win the men's NCAA tournament, and the team that landed the future number one NBA pick Cooper Flagg, you're likely to find nothing at all. Duke has steamrolled its way to the men's Final Four because it has one of the greatest collections of players in modern college basketball history. Yet, who exactly is paying for a roster that cost millions of dollars to put together remains a gigantic mystery. In a move that's highly unusual for a major college program, there's virtually no online footprint for Duke men's basketball's booster collective. That's not because the Blue Devils have somehow managed to construct a star-studded team without gobs of cash lining their players' pockets, though. Instead, Duke is in a position to compete for its sixth national championship thanks to a group of high net worth donors who have chosen to operate in a way that makes them unique in the braggadocious world of college sports by conducting their business from the shadows. People involved with the operation say the group's silence is intentional. They say their goal is to give Coach John Scheyer the resources to compete, to support his vision, and never be a distraction from the ultimate goal of winning national championships. What little evidence there is of the group's existence is buried deep in corporate records. In March of 2023, 2 weeks after Sheyer's first season as Mike Krzyzewski's replacement ended with a loss in the NCAA tournament round 32, 3 Duke alumni incorporated a nonprofit in Delaware with an address listed as an office building in Arkansas. They called it, quote, One Vision Futures Fund, end quote, and applied to do business in North Carolina according to state records. In its annual report for last year, there was no hiding its purpose in an era when college athletes get paid for the name, image, and likeness. The form says, quote, description of nature of business, sports, NIL, end quote. The address of OVFF, as it's known, belongs to the office of Duke alum Jeff Fox. The CEO, I'm not going to read all that. He's listed on incorporating documents as one of 3 executive officers, along with fellow alum Dan Levitan and Steve Dunker. Money, folks, KP. This paragraph here, I got a kick out of. Most collectives loudly broadcast their activities because they'll take money from anyone with a credit card. Auburn's On to Victory, Florida Victorious, and Houston's Lincoln Cougs all have websites where visitors can become a member and donate to the team within a couple of clicks. Those schools' athletic departments also publicly promote their collectives. OVFF has no such digital presence, and its near invisibility stands in stark contrast to Duke's other booster collective. The Durham Devils Club has a website offering memberships that start at $20 a month and lists a number of teams it supports, from football to women's soccer, but notably not the basketball team. In response to inquiries from the Wall Street Journal about the collective's activities, Rachel Baker, the Duke men's basketball GM, who was hired in 2022 to oversee NIL, says OVFF's under-the-radar approach is quite intentional. For one, she says it helps protect the players' personal lives when boosters aren't touting how much they're being paid. Quote from Rachel Baker, it's no secret what we do, but the discretion around it is more about athletes' privacy than anything else, end quote. The collective's membership has been kept small on purpose as well. After hearing stories about donors who tried to interfere with team decision-making or had strings tied to their capital, OVFF wanted a tightly held group that was happy to invest passively and trust in Scheyer to run the team. OVFF's privacy and exclusivity has other benefits as well, Baker says. By not addressing the dollar numbers it throws around, it has allowed the collective to stay nimble in the marketplace of players. The lean operation also means they've avoided overhead costs, such as a business manager, with the goal that all the money going in should flow directly back out to the players. Given that collective was formed after last year's freshman class had already committed, this marks the first season when its muscle is being fully deployed. It's no coincidence that this also marks Duke's return to superpower status. This Blue Devil roster features what's undoubtedly a pricey group of talent. Flag alone reportedly makes millions off NIL, while 2 of his fellow freshmen, Con Knipple and Kama Maluch, were 5-star recruits who are expected to be first-round picks. The team also added several key veterans in the transfer portal, home to many of the game's fiercest bidding wars. Lastly, Rachel Baker declined to give a precise figure for the budget of this year's roster, but even before NIL, The school was accustomed to donors contributing enormous sums to the basketball team. Duke already had something called the Legacy Fund, created by Coach K to endow the team. The minimum donation for the Legacy Fund, $1 million. Thoughts on that? Thoughts on that dark money?
I mean, it's a model it's impressive. You know, it's like there's no need to like thump your chest and use a megaphone to tout how much money, because then to me it waters down the product. If you have this secret society, as long as it's legal, and then by what we've seen them making the Final Four, then apparently that system is working. We've seen throughout the course of the season and the tournament, people threaten these players if they don't perform as fans think they should, just because of the betting implications that are tied to that. And what you're really doing is you're criticizing somebody for playing a game at a level which whoever is the criticizer can't play, and you're jeopardizing their mental health. Like, you're threatening families, you're threatening players. Like, really? Because they missed a three-pointer, or because their team lost, like, whatever. So, I mean, I commend the way Duke is doing it, as long as it's above board.
I do as well. I like how they're handling things. It's too late now because the Cats. Lincoln Cougs could be analogous to Duke's other booster collective, and establish a private one for the Houston.
Sure.
Establish one with the Hall of Famers, the pro athletes, all the do it that way. I would be in favor of that. I think it's better, smarter, be private. It's no one's business what the kids are being paid. I don't care. I don't want to know. I don't want people to know how much I'm getting paid. And so it always makes me shake my head when people in society toss out the salary. And the agents do this because they want to let everybody know what they're doing with their clients and stuff. But very few people want their salaries made public. Right. So why are you okay with the players' salaries being made public? So let me get down from my horse on that one. Okay, these final moments, we will at some point get to the Players Era Festival, but I want to talk about the article I read that the South Carolina women's basketball program is in a deficit, surprisingly, which makes me shake my head. Makes me okay with my alma mater in women's basketball being so far behind. Okay. South Carolina women's basketball loses $5 million annually. This is from Jordan Kate K with the State, and why South Carolina is okay with that for now. A review of SE South Carolina's annual report, an exclusive interview with the new USC athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, and additional reporting produced these findings. The Gamecocks women's basketball program had almost $5.9 million in revenue in fiscal year 2024, but the program ran a net budget loss in large part because of coaching salaries. Women's sports don't make as much money from media rights as some of the men's teams do. The Iowa and UConn women's basketball programs made twice as much money than USC in the last fiscal year from ticket sales. It's possible South Carolina adjusts ticket prices upward, among other things, to help Staley's Gamecocks bring in more revenue. Over the past 3 years, a span in which South Carolina has made the Final Four every season and won a pair of national titles, the Gamecocks women's basketball team has averaged a deficit of $5.59 million. Largest shortfall of $5.7 million of those 3 years came in fiscal year 2023, the lone season USC did not cut down the nets. For instance, last year, as the USC women's basketball team lost $5.6 million, the men's team had a profit of nearly $3.5 million. On paper, that looks like a Grand Canyon-sized gap incapable of being tightened. But if the South Carolina women's team earned the same money from media rights, television deals, etc., and NCAA tournament distributions, units, KP, the revenue of the two programs would be almost identical. And there's a good argument to be made that looking at South Carolina's financial spreadsheets is a poor way of determining value. It does not account for the brand awareness of 24 million people watching Staley's team win the national championship. It does not account for a high school student watching South Carolina's domination and applying to the university. It does not account for future revenue such success might have on how much South Carolina earned from its next apparel deal. And it does not account for the tourism dollars that the Gamecocks, especially in hosting the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament, bring to Columbia. Since taking the South Carolina job in December, Athletic Director Donati has said how the Gamecocks and college athletics as a whole have operated in the past cannot be how they operate in the future. It's not sustainable. Donati said he's focused on finding ways to create more of a direct return on investment with women's basketball, which likely starts inside the arena. The Gamecocks women's basketball team playing in an arena that holds 18,000 people has led the country in attendance for the past decade. And yet LSU, playing in a building that holds nearly 5,000 people fewer, makes almost as much money from its ticket sales. During its 38-0 title season last year, the Gamecocks women's team collected $1.63 million from tickets. Concurrently, Iowa rode the Caitlin Clark train to the bank, profiting nearly $3.3 million ticket sales last year. And the Hawkeyes weren't alone in the financial windfall. UConn reported selling $3.25 million of women's basketball tickets last season. Still, only one women's sports program in the country, Nebraska volleyball, turns a profit. Aside from tickets, there are few revenue streams for women's basketball right now. Under Armour and Learfield, South Carolina's media partner, give a combined $2.1 million, but that goes straight to Dawn Staley as part of her contract. Last year, though, the team pulled in over $500,000 from contributions, donations from fans and boosters, over $500,000 from parking, concessions, novelties, etc., more than the men's team, and over $250K from the school itself as quote-unquote institutional support. The revenue generated by having such a successful team, ticket sales, corporate sponsorships, concessions, has not generated enough to overcome the operating cost of fielding such a successful team. Most notably, coaching salaries. More than half, $6.53 million of the Gamecocks basketball total expenses from fiscal year 24 was tied up in paying its coaches. Another big cost last season was travel, which was higher than it had been each of the previous two seasons, $1.8 million. A possible explanation, I think this is legit, the Gamecocks opened the season playing in Paris. Duh. That is all normal across college athletics. Every head coaching contract includes similar incentives. Teams go on trips every few years. Programs spend money. But it does not explain the deficit. To understand that, you have to understand the money women's college hoops doesn't make compared to the programs turning a profit. The 2025 tournament will be the first that women's basketball teams will earn units for each March Madness game they play. This has been the case with the men's tournament for years as part of distributing revenue from its nearly $1 billion TV deal with CBS and Turner Sports. A men's team earns a $2.1 million unit for its conference, which is then distributed to its conference members over a 6-year span. Every SEC men's basketball team will earn 1/116th of a unit, or $131,250. Compared to the unit for women's tournament amounts to just about $115,000, or around $7,000 per SEC school. That number is a reflection of an 8-year media rights deal the NCAA signed with ESPN that valued the NCAA women's tournament at $65 million annually. So that is a far cry from $1 billion. And then there's the SEC media rights deal. We don't have data to understand the effect of the SEC's 10-year, $3 billion deal with ABC and ESPN, which went into effect this summer, but precedent has not favored women's basketball. In fiscal year 24, before the ABC deal kicked in, South Carolina's athletics department made nearly $37 million from media rights. The SEC gives each conference member that money, then allows the schools to determine how they want to allocate. At South Carolina last year, over $15 million of that money went directly to the football program. Over $4 million went to men's basketball, leaving $18 million to the school. But no media rights money went directly to women's basketball, according to South Carolina's annual financial report. Thoughts on all of that information? It's a lot, but I wanted to get all of it in there. Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a non-starter. I mean, basically, bottom line is, if you don't want Dawn Staley as coach, then who? And apparently, they value her and her staff enough that they made the contractual offers with the terms and conditions, which they met. Paid them if you didn't want to offer it to them, don't offer it to them. Don't punish them for winning. And number two, yeah, it's obvious, it's been stated before, that how it's structured, the women's media rights deal is not comparable to the men's. So like, yeah, it's unfair. So yeah, they're going to bring in less money. Bottom line.
And
don't make an example out of South Carolina, because it's not like they're an outlier.
Oh no, I mean the amount kind of surprised me, because I saw something about Louisville women's hoops was losing money annually too, but they don't charge a lot for their ticket prices as well.
What they're saying is ticket prices are going up.
Yes, that point for sure. But I just I don't feel as bad for my alma mater and the money problem they have, because for women's basketball, poverty. I mean, no tickets sales worth a damn for 11 years, no tournament trips. People hardly know they exist, all of that stuff. So, yeah. But changes are coming for women's basketball. The units taking place, being paid out over 3 years. The men are over 6 years. Women's basketball, they do produce revenue. The visibility for the Gamecocks, what they bring in to the university, that was important to point out in the article as well. So I liked the article because it kind of covered a lot of different arguments that folks have made about this and that and the other. But to your point exactly, if the university did not want or did not believe that Dawn Staley and her staff was worth the money, they wouldn't be paying her.
Yeah. And like the return of it, can't exactly be measured, because how many endorsement deals does Dawn Staley have?
Yes.
She is the most visible brand ambassador for the University of South Carolina.
Yes.
More so than Shane Beamer.
Agreed. And that'll do it. Fast pace, fast break of this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover. Miss KP, Kennetra Pulliams, thank you as always once again for your time and your insight. Follow the Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Spread the word about the takeover. Spread the word about what we do here on this show and other shows on the Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. And lastly, since 1994, the Houston Roundball Review. Local name, global perspective. Everyone, take care. Peace.